My fiancé wanted an open relationship 2 weeks before our wedding, so I canceled everything. Post. 2 weeks before our wedding, my fiancé asked me to go to a therapy session with her. She'd been seeing this therapist on her own for a while and said she wanted us to talk everything through before the wedding and be completely honest with each other. That already felt strange to me. We were 2 weeks away from getting married. I thought we were honest with each other. Also, she'd always been very private about her therapy sessions. She almost never talked about them, and I'd never even met her therapist. So being invited into that space so suddenly felt off. But I went. Out of pure instinct for self-preservation, I kept my phone on and recorded the audio. I didn't plan to use it for anything specific. I just had a gut feeling. My fiancé was already there when I arrived. I had to wait about 20 minutes before they called me in. The therapist greeted me, shook my hand, and we exchanged some polite small talk. Then she said, "You're not at all like how your fiancé described you." I think she meant it as a compliment, but it immediately made me uneasy. Then she turned to my fiancé and said, "This might be more difficult than we thought." That really set off alarms in my head. But I'm a calm, level-headed person. I don't react emotionally in situations like that. I just kept that awkward, polite smile we all use when something feels uncomfortable. The therapist started talking. She gave a long speech that I'm not even going to repeat here. While she was talking, my fiancé grabbed my hand. The therapist said we live in a modern world, and my fiancé wants our marriage to be unconventional. I smiled, because honestly, I had no idea what she meant. In my head, I assumed it was about independence. Maybe she didn't want to be a traditional wife. Maybe she wanted to focus on her career, keep her autonomy, that kind of thing. Modern woman, equality, all that. No, what she actually meant was this. After we got married, she wanted the freedom to sleep with other men. That was her idea of a non-traditional marriage. But, according to her, she loved me so much that she wouldn't be able to handle me having the same freedom. It would hurt her too much to know I found other women attractive or that someone might steal me from her. I let them finish talking. They were both very confident. Their confidence actually grew the longer I stayed quiet. I'm sure they'd rehearsed that conversation beforehand. When they finally stopped, I looked at the therapist and asked a simple question. "Are you licensed?" Judging by her reaction, that was not the first question she expected. She said yes. So I asked her to explain to my fiancé why we would no longer be getting married and why we were no longer a couple as of that moment. I wished them both good luck and walked out. Now I'm thinking about filing a complaint against that therapist. I'm just not sure where to direct it, whether to the clinic or the licensing board. I don't think trying to corner someone like that is professional behavior, and I want her held accountable. To be clear, there was no version of that conversation that ended well. Even if my fiancé had suggested a fully open marriage where I could sleep with other women too, the result would have been the same. That's not a marriage. That's a farce. It also made me start wondering if she'd already cheated. Now that I'm looking back at things more clearly, some details don't add up. Maybe I was just a fool. I listened to the recording later, and I still can't believe what was said in that room. Anyway, the wedding is canceled. I'm a very calm person. I don't get into fights because I don't look for them. I don't have conflicts or enemies because I try to live by principles and common sense. Maybe that gave my ex the impression that she could just walk all over me. If she thought that, she's an idiot. After listening to the recording a few times, I'm convinced the therapist realized I wasn't the kind of man my fiancé had described. That explains her earlier comment. This might be more difficult than we thought. Now that the wedding is off, people are starting to ask questions, and I'm not comfortable answering them. How should I handle that? I'm sure my ex is trying to control the narrative and minimize the damage. But I have the recording. If she goes too far, I won't hesitate to defend myself. Our families also want answers, and I don't know what to tell them. I don't want them thinking I'm some idiot who let his fiancée become so confident she could just tell me she planned to sleep with other men after we got married. She's been blowing up my phone, my best friend's phone, and my brother's phone. We can fix this. I didn't understand what they were telling me in therapy. I'll do anything to make this right. It was the therapist's idea. I was against it. I haven't responded to any of it. We were also in the process of getting a mortgage together, but I canceled everything. I've basically erased every financial and legal connection between us. Her current version of events is that she shared some insecurities in therapy about our sexual history. Apparently, I've had more partners than she has, and the therapist suggested evening the score. Whether that's true or not, That therapist needs to be reported as soon as I figure out how and where to do it. This post is mostly me thinking out loud, but I also want advice. How would you handle questions from friends and family in a situation like this? My ex is definitely working hard to spin this story, and I don't want to end up in a he said, she said mess. I have the recording, and I'm wondering if I should send it to the people who are asking questions. She doesn't even know I have it. Update number 1. No more jokes. The last 2 weeks since my original post have been eventful. Last Monday, I spoke to a lawyer at work about the situation with the therapist. He looked at me like I was completely insane and asked if I was joking. I told him I wasn't and offered to let him listen to the recording. His answer, sure. Let's hear it. The next day, we talked again after he'd listened to it. He pointed out a few details I hadn't even noticed myself. Throughout the entire conversation, the therapist kept saying things like, we think, we want, we decided, we discussed. Not once did she say, your fiancé asked me to tell you this, or your fiancé wants you to know this. It was always we. He then asked me what my end goal was. Did I want to sue? He said he didn't think there was a strong legal case, and I agreed. I never really planned to sue anyone. I just wanted to report this to the appropriate authorities so they could look into that therapist. We decided to send 2 letters, one to the clinic where the therapist works, and one to the American Psychological Association. We checked, and she is accredited. Word about the situation spread to a few other people at work. Someone found her online reviews and even the contacts of 2 former patients. Her reviews weren't great. Some people were clearly unhappy with her. We managed to reach 2 of them through social media. When we explained the situation, they were more than willing to help. Their stories weren't any better than mine. So the letters we sent were pretty thick, statements from those 2 people, plus my own description of how my ex changed after starting therapy, and a detailed account of my session with the therapist. Last Friday, I met with my parents. My ex's parents came over too, and we all had a conversation together. My ex was there as well, and more information came out that also ended up in the report about the therapist. This week, we sent the letters. The clinic responded quickly. They called our office Thursday morning, probably to check whether this was some kind of prank or a real issue. We spoke to their lawyer on the phone. Once we confirmed everything was real, I heard someone in the background say something like, "Oh, it's them." They said they take this very seriously. One of my coworkers suggested they might have received similar complaints before, but this was probably the first time everything was so well documented. Our letter also mentioned that we'd contacted the American Psychological Association, which may have added some pressure. I don't know how this will end, but for me, this issue is closed. After talking to the other 2 people who had therapy with her, I sincerely hope she at least gets investigated. She seems unstable and clearly has some kind of agenda. She didn't just mess up my relationship, she damaged theirs too. For the record, one of those former patients was a woman. Now about my ex and her parents. Last Friday, my parents called and asked me to stop by after work. When I arrived, surprise, my ex and her parents were already there. My first reaction, seeing their car in the driveway, was to turn around and leave. That meeting was supposed to happen on my terms, not hers. But she tried to take control of the situation. I wasn't going to allow that. She was waiting for me outside. And I'll be honest, she looked incredible. If I ever had to present someone as the perfect girlfriend to my parents, that would have been the exact image. She said they were there to talk and try to fix things. By they, she meant her parents. Either she hadn't told them the full story, or she'd told them a version they didn't believe. She had a journal with her. She said she'd started writing it before therapy and continued all the way up to that Friday morning. She insisted I needed to read it, that it would explain everything. I told her this wasn't a book club. I tried to walk into the house and start this whole circus, but she asked for 10 minutes alone first, just the 2 of us, before I spoke with her parents. She handed me the journal again and started crying. Then my sister came outside. Then my ex's sister. They'd already been inside and came out to see what was happening. Eventually, I took the journal, went inside, greeted everyone, and we walked to a quiet part of my parents' backyard among the trees and benches. She told me she'd quit her job. The stress had been too much, and she'd had a nervous breakdown. Things kept getting worse instead of better. She's no longer seeing that therapist. She said she originally started therapy because of work-related stress, but somehow it shifted into constant discussions about our relationship. That apparently became the therapist's main focus. She admitted she'd never told her parents the real reason we broke up. Now she's seeing a new therapist. I mostly just listened. Then she started talking about us. She said she'd do anything to earn my trust back. I could control the finances, have access to all her devices, track her movements. Any property we owned would be in my name. She listed a lot more conditions than I'm repeating here. I don't understand why she thinks that would be a healthy life for either of us. I asked her if she had cheated on me. She said she'd had the opportunity to cheat, but didn't. I believe her, but that answer made me angry. What does opportunity even mean? If you're in a serious relationship, you don't put yourself in situations where that opportunity exists. You don't want that opportunity. It's like saying, "Today I had the opportunity to kill someone." What were you doing that gave you that opportunity in the first place? Why even frame it like that, as if it's something positive? Our 10 minutes were up. I told her we should go talk to our parents. So we did. I asked both our sisters to leave, since it wasn't their business. My sister protested, but eventually left. I explained what happened in the therapy session and my position. I didn't mention the recording, it wasn't necessary. My ex confirmed everything I said. That surprised me. Her father's eyes filled with tears, and it broke my heart. Her mother asked if this was really how she'd raised her, and demanded an explanation. My ex repeated the same story: stress at work, depression, breakdown, therapy, a therapist obsessed with our relationship, a therapist who convinced her our relationship was the root of all her problems. She said after that therapy session, and my reaction, she snapped out of it. She quit her job, is now looking for something less stressful, and is willing to do anything to get me back. She started crying again. She mentioned the journal again, saying that if I read it, everything would make sense, that she never supported the therapist's idea, that she only went along with it because the therapist was an authority figure. Our parents looked at me. I said, someone else's private journal isn't the kind of literature I read, unless the author is a dead poet. Big mistake. What I meant was that personal journals usually become literature only after the author dies, like historical figures or famous writers. I also hoped they'd understand I didn't want to read it because it wouldn't change anything. But the way it came out sounded terrible. Everyone looked at me like I'd just wished my ex dead. The atmosphere turned hostile. So I quickly said, okay, and promised I'd read the journal. Sometimes one wrong sentence ruins everything. My ex is now seeing a new therapist. She even showed her parents' emails as proof. Apparently, he's an older man with a white beard, looks like Freud. I Googled him. He's married, attends conferences, has written several books. They're even on Amazon. Seems like a credible guy. Then someone said, "You kids can work this out." That was the second thing that day that made me angry. Like this was just some childish game. Like we should just listen to the adults. Like we're not old enough to decide what betrayal is or whether it's forgivable. Apparently, we're just children who need to fix things. We've known each other for 9 years. 5 of those as a couple. Even if her behavior had understandable reasons, how do you go back to what we had? This isn't a reset. My perception of her has fundamentally changed. She feels like a stranger now. Yes, I still know her. Yes, I still find her attractive, very attractive. The way she looked last Friday was incredible. I can't deny that. But that was part of her calculation. I'm not fooling myself. The hairstyle I love, the dress I bought her, the shoes I like most, the light perfume I gave her. Everything was carefully chosen. The journal is still on my nightstand. I haven't read it, and I probably never will. I checked it just to confirm it really was a year old, and it is. You can see from the creases and the ink that the pages were written at different times. The earlier entries have older-looking ink, and you can see how the pages gradually filled up. The pen was attached to the journal. I tested it. The ink level matches what you'd expect from a year of use. It's not fake. Everything about it shows natural wear and time. Still, I see no point in reading it. It would just become another tool for manipulation. I don't think she started it a year ago with that intention, but if she's telling the truth, her new therapist suggested she give it to me. As for what I tell people who ask why the wedding was canceled, I just say, we had serious disagreements we couldn't resolve. That's about it. But if her sister learns the truth, and that's very possible, since she's close with their mother, then everyone will know the real reason. Our parents want us to meet again next week. They want me to read the journal first. Maybe it'll help. Maybe we can fix things and start fresh, since we have such a long history together. They say she'll get treatment. She'll get better. She's still the woman I fell in love with. Right now, she's just unwell. They say I still love her. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so dramatic. Those are their words, not mine. I don't think I'll meet them again next Friday. But damn, she looked incredible. I want to thank everyone for the support and advice. It helped me create a plan of action regarding the therapist. Now I have one last question. What should I do with her journal? Return it? Keep it? Or read it in 90 years? Honestly curious what you'd do in my place. Update number 2. English, Reddit style, edited and polished. Let's start with the therapist. She no longer works at that clinic. The main reason for that decision was most likely a lawsuit filed against the clinic by someone completely unrelated to my situation. I don't have the details. The therapist tried to contact me, but without success. I suspect she found out about the report I filed and wanted more information. I didn't respond. She was blocked, and her request stayed unanswered. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice keeps whispering that maybe filing that report wasn't the smartest decision. I keep thinking it could lead the people behind that lawsuit to contact me, which would bring a lot of unwanted attention. But despite all that, I still can't help a small, satisfied smile when I think about the fact that the therapist is in trouble. For those who doubted that I have emotions, if this doesn't convince you, I don't know what will. And yes, that was sarcasm. Now about Mela. Things with her were much more complicated. I decided to return her diary, and I did it as formally as possible. A courier our office works with delivered it to her on Monday morning. I also attached a letter explaining why I hadn't read it. It all came down to one thing. She never took full responsibility for the situation. To me, handing me the diary felt like she was shifting the burden onto me, like the answers were my job to find. So I shifted that responsibility right back to her. Honestly, the moment I got confirmation that the diary had been delivered, I felt a wave of regret. Maybe I should have read it after all. Later that same day, Mayla came to my office. She didn't cause a scene. Nothing dramatic. She just waited quietly in reception. Her plan was to wait until I finished work and then talk to me. Naturally, I found out she was there pretty quickly. I had two options: send her away or talk to her. We talked. There were several factors that contributed to the collapse of our relationship. First, stress. I knew she was under pressure at work, but I didn't realize how bad it really was. Looking back, when she started therapy for work stress, I probably should have paid closer attention. But she kept saying everything was fine, so why wouldn't I believe her? Despite the therapy, she eventually had a breakdown at work, one she hid from me and her family. Second, I almost became a father. She had a miscarriage. She had been pregnant for a few weeks and wanted to tell me in some special way. But then the bleeding started, and it was over. She never told me because she was afraid I'd see her as defective. She knew how much I wanted kids and thought I'd believe she couldn't carry a child. The idea is completely ridiculous, but that's what she believed. Third, friends. I've never hidden the fact that we had friends in open relationships. One of those friends reached out to Mayla about a year ago and invited her to lunch. During that lunch, she unloaded all her frustration about her failing marriage. Her husband had something in common with me. Both of us had significantly more sexual partners than our wives. In my case, 26. In his, around 70. As soon as they got married, he pushed for an open relationship, and she's been miserable ever since. According to her, the same fate was waiting for Mayla, unless she was careful with me. She told Mayla that I showed the same warning signs her husband did before their wedding. Fourth, her parents. Both of our fathers work in academia and have known each other for 30 to 35 years. They often attend events together with their wives. That's how I first met Mayla. But it turned out her parents had gone through a very difficult period caused by her father's infidelity. Mayla only found out recently after talking to her mother about her fears. It completely shocked her. Her parents had always seemed like the perfect couple, role models. They had managed to fix things and maintain the illusion of a perfect marriage all those years. So, for major stressors, add a therapist with questionable motives, and you get a perfect recipe for destroying a relationship. The therapist enthusiastically supported the idea of an open marriage for us. She reinforced everything that friend had told Mayla. Men like me would never be satisfied with one woman. Eventually, I'd look elsewhere. According to the therapist, there was only one solution. Mayla should sleep with other men, at least until our numbers were equal. Of course, I'd be against it, but that was normal. If I truly loved her, I'd understand. It was a multi-layered plan. Fix my supposed future behavior. Prove my love. Strengthen the relationship. Obviously, it would have destroyed us. And I think that was exactly what the therapist wanted. What she didn't anticipate was how fast I would react. For the next week, Mayla and I met every day. She answered all my questions. One thing became very clear. While I was ready to end everything, she was ready to fight for the relationship to the very end. By the end of that week, I had to leave for a work trip to another city. It was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it got extended to 4. More paid hours, at least. Before I left, I gave Mayla a copy of the therapy session recording. She already knew I had it. It was one of the first things I mentioned when she came to my office. I think listening to it shocked her deeply. Her memory of the session was very different from what was actually said. It seemed like she finally understood where my behavior was coming from. For the next 3 weeks, I was mostly on my own. Minimal interference from anyone. It was peaceful. Some people in the comments had offered to grab a beer if I ever passed through their cities. I actually took one of those offers. Met an online acquaintance for the first time. To my surprise, he wasn't a weirdo. He and his wife were genuinely nice people. In the 4th week, Mayla came to visit me. We had stayed in touch the entire time, talking about different things, but always circling back to us. There was one big issue we still needed to solve. After the wedding, we were supposed to go to France for 2 weeks, a delayed honeymoon. We couldn't afford it immediately after the wedding, so we scheduled it 3 months later. That trip was coming up fast. We had non-refundable plane tickets and hotel bookings. What we didn't have anymore was us. So we talked, and we agreed to still go, but as friends. Yes, I can already hear the collective eye roll. France was amazing. Visiting a place like that really puts things into perspective. The US feels like the Middle Ages by comparison. And when you walk into a museum, you can immediately spot the Americans. There should honestly be a mandatory how to behave abroad class in schools. We came back from France as a couple again. Not because of the magic of Paris. We're nowhere near what we used to be. There's still a lot to rebuild. But we agreed on several things. She'll find a less stressful job. Our friends and open marriages are now considered toxic. We're cutting them off. We both like the name Mila. Our first daughter will have that name. Thanks, France. You should never hide something like a miscarriage from your partner. I'm still incredibly angry about that. We'll get a puppy and a kitten. She'll continue therapy with her current therapist. When we do get married, it'll be for us. Small ceremony, just close family. Next trip will probably be Italy. I know this probably isn't the dramatic, revenge-filled update some people were expecting. But as I said from the beginning, I never hated Mayla. My actions were about self-protection. At the time, everything she did suggested she wanted something completely different from what I thought we had agreed on. For those worried about her mental state, she's doing much better. Once the fog from that therapist lifted, she started to come back to herself. No one walks away unchanged after something like this, but we'll manage. And about all those things she offered, financial control, tracking her location, access to all her devices. I have zero interest in living like that. It was just her desperate attempt to keep the conversation going. We agreed to remain open with each other's devices, but honestly, we always were. Nothing changed there. As for finances, we'll keep doing what we always did, share everything. Thank you to everyone who gave advice. I'm genuinely grateful. Writing these posts has been a kind of therapy in itself, and a good way to release the pressure.